For many, it's one of Europe's greatest achievements. But 30 years since the Schengen Treaty was signed, is it still a good deal for Europe? What are the real pros and cons to having open borders? Welcome to On the Front Line. A Europe without borders. Once a vision, 30 years ago, it became a reality. A village in Luxembourg gave its name to the world, Schengen. For the treaty's founding fathers, the benefits were clear. Remove border checks and trade, travel and tourism would flourish. Today, Schengen covers most of Western and a huge swathe of Eastern Europe. More than 400 million people can travel passport-free in 26 European countries. A staggering 1.25 billion journeys are made in the borderless zone every year. But if tourists can travel freely, so can criminals and terrorists. The very real threat of attacks by extremists has forced governments to act. The migration crisis in the Mediterranean also highlights the difficulties of policing the EU's external borders. Such political pressures raise the question, as it reaches 30, can Schengen survive? With me now is Mark Pirani from Carnegie Europe, a Brussels-based think tank, and Sergio Carrera from the Centre of European Policy Studies. Also joining us from Strasbourg is Viviane Reding, MEP, former Vice President of the European Commission. Welcome to you all. Mark Pirani, I'd like to begin with you. Increased migration, a growing jihadist threat. Is Schengen being put at risk?
Well, Schengen is one of the major achievements of the European Union, with many benefits which you have illustrated in your report. But Schengen is under threat for three reasons. One is migration, one is terrorism. But to me, the biggest reason is that it has become the tool of populist politics in Europe, as you can see with the French right and extreme right, the Spanish government, and so on. So Schengen is being blamed, and sometimes for the wrong reasons.
Sergio Carrera?
Yes, Schengen shouldn't be at risk. What these events send us, all of us, a very strong reminder of what is still to be done in terms by all governments to accomplish a common border policy and to receive asylum seekers and refugees in Europe in a joint manner. These events shouldn't be or shouldn't constitute a threat, but rather an opportunity for Europe and the European Union to continue constructing Schengen.
Okay. Madam Reding, Schengen is being put at risk by these outside political factors. What do you think?
Schengen is one of the biggest achievements of the European Union. 67% of our citizens believe that Schengen is one of the most precious things Europe has ever done. And they are right, because here is a method which combines security and freedom. It gives the possibility to our European citizens to move freely inside the borders, and it gives the possibility of our police forces to be connected with police forces wherever in the Schengen area. A lot of criminals have been taken by this way, and a lot of businesses have been flourishing.
Sergio Carrera, France notably wants to have systematic border checks on all of Schengen's external borders. It's also calling for more flexibility with the Schengen Border Code. Given the threats that we currently face, is this a sensible approach?
We need to be very cautious at times of adopting new measures that will jeopardize our freedoms as citizens and as residents in the European Union. These kind of proposals need to be assessed very carefully based on data and objective information showing their necessity. And at the moment, this is lacking.
A sensible approach, Mark Pirani?
Populism would tend to have politicians say, Well, it's all fault of Schengen. Take the attack last year on the Jewish Museum in Brussels. This was by a European citizen, a French citizen. He was flagged in the Schengen information system, so the border police in the Frankfurt airport saw that he was there. But the French didn't have an arrest warrant on him because he was not listed as terrorist. So the flaw was not Schengen, was the French system. This has been corrected in the meantime. So we have to be very careful not to attack Schengen for the wrong reasons.
Madam Reding, would you accept more flexibility with the current Schengen system? Would you be prepared to vote for some changes?
The flexibility exists already. If there are objective threats, the borders can be closed temporarily. And the example which had been given before is a very important one. There is no problem with the borders, there's a problem with the systems and operating the systems inside of the member states. So we are learning by errors and we are becoming stronger.
So why are some countries pushing for change then? How would you explain that?
Some member countries have problems at home due to populists who say that all problems come from outside, and they are just building up a witch hunting system in order not to see where the real problems are coming from. Schengen is not a problem, Schengen is a solution.
The idea of open borders seems to be accepted here as just a given. But why do we need them, Mark Pirini? Why do we need open borders?
Well, open borders within the EU was the logical evolution of the European construction. And as Mrs. Reding said, there's a very high approval rate for the Schengen system and very important benefits: tourism, business, mutual understanding between people. This is absolutely clear.
Viviane Reding, the Schengen Treaty is kind of a bit like the euro. It was a bit half-baked. It's not fully cooked. That's the reason why there's so much discontent.
I don't understand the question, because the Schengen Treaty is a very solid one and it has not caused any difficulties inside the Schengen area. What people are discussing about now is the outside borders.
Well,
and
exactly. Sorry to interrupt you, but exactly. It's outside Schengen that is putting pressure within Schengen politically.
The outside borders, they do have problems not due to the Schengen area, but due to the pressure of all those immigrants who want to come to our territory. And this has certainly nothing to do with Schengen. It has to do with problems, it has to do with war, it has to do with poverty, it has to do with political unrest in countries which are not belonging to Europe.
Okay, thank you. Thousands of migrants, some of them from ISIS, for example, are coming via Turkey through to Greece. Greece has recently threatened to let thousands of these people into the EU if it doesn't get debt relief. So what do you do about that?
Well, the main threat that we're facing with ISIS and Turkey are European jihadists. That is, people who have come from our countries, 4,000 of them at the moment, and they're going back and forth. So that's the main issue.
Schengen, Madam Reding, is built on mutual trust. When you hear some of the rhetoric that is coming out of Athens, does that worry you?
Well, a lot of the rhetoric which is coming out of Athens worries me because this country seems to be in a very bad shape, not only for the security of its external borders, but also for the equilibrium of its administration and of its public finances.
So should it be kicked out of Schengen? It doesn't have the finances. It's having huge austerity imposed on it. There's a clear contradiction here. The money that's been put in place isn't enough. Should it be kicked out of Schengen?
No. Greece should certainly not be kicked out of Schengen. Schengen has a solidarity mechanism. If something is going wrong or is going difficult in one of the Schengen members, the other Schengen members are there in order to give a helping hand, and that is what is happening.
Greece doesn't seem to think much solidarity is being shown, though, does it? I mean, if the defence minister is threatening to send thousands of migrants into the rest of the EU, that doesn't sort of bode well.
No, that certainly doesn't, and we would like to have a little more responsibility from some members of the Greek government.
Okay, thank you. Sergio Carrera, at the moment, Bulgaria and Romania are waiting to join Schengen. Would it be a good idea to let them in?
If we have the evidence showing that these countries are ready to become members of Schengen, of course. When confronted with certain discourses by governments or certain populist politicians about the threats and risks, what the European Union can do is to provide data, objective assessment.
Sure, the data, yes, but they have a track record of lax border controls, corruption. How can they be trusted to police their borders correctly?
These are challenges that all member states are confronting. Sometimes we tend to focus too much on Bulgaria, Romania and Greece, when actually these are issues of concern for all EU member states.
Final question to all of you. Will Schengen be here in 30 years' time, and what will it look like? Sergio Carrera.
I do certainly hope so, that they will be here and that there will be more instruments to better ensure that claims and arguments about more solidarity, more sharing of responsibility between member states actually take place and are implemented.
Okay. Mark Perini, will it be here in 30 years' time?
Well, I want to be optimistic, but what you need is a public debate to avoid populist politicians to confuse issues. You have to explain what it takes to fight irregular migration, what it takes to fight terrorism, and what it takes to improve Schengen. And these issues are blurred at the moment. That's a problem.
Okay, thank you. Madam Reding, the final word for you.
I have no doubt that it will be there. The future will be to have a better reinforcement of the outside borders and more moving of the citizens inside the borders. For the time being, in European average, there are only 4% of the European citizens who take advantage of Schengen in order to go to work and to live in a neighboring country. I suppose that 30 years from now there will be many, many more.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you all. Very interesting debate. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. That's it for this edition of On the Front Line. You can find us on social media as well as Euronews.com. Until the next time, thanks for watching.